So after thinking, reevaluating for a good amount of time about my experience with the weeb culture as a whole, I have come to the conclusion and realization that this medium is just another form of hedonism. And for the longest time, I've never really thought about anime and manga this way, mainly because I've never tried any narcotics, wine, beer, or any hedonistic things except for beating my meat, of course. Now this doesn't mean that anime as a whole is a form of pleasure and escape for everyone all the time, but for most people it really is. I'm sure there are people out there who are genuinely inspired by a show that they have watched and probably inspire them to go on and do great things with their life, but for most of the time and for most people, watching anime is just an empty void. It really doesn't have any meaning behind it. Anime is just entertainment and gives you some form of pleasure and allows you to not think about the real world in some amount of time. And just like any form of hedonistic things, if you consume too much of it, it will destroy your life in one way or another. Look, there's nothing wrong with this medium as a whole in my opinion, except for some questionable shows that have come out. And watching anime isn't bad as like doing drugs. Actually, kids do drugs, at least that will get you to go outside for once. But watching anime isn't bad at all. There's 1,000 worse things that you can do than watching some animated titty. But at some point, watching too much anime can turn you into a degenerate. When I say anime is an empty void of nothingness, it really is. The basic life cycle of an anime fan is you finding the first anime that got you hooked into this medium, and it's most likely some sort of shonen, let's be real here. Then you either forget about anime as a whole, moved on and have a life, or you can become an anime addict and you go down the path of a weeb. There's not really an in-between. You either become a weeb or you just don't. Which takes us to the next step, which is discovering the world of anime. Once you start to enjoy this medium, you would dive in and discover popular shows like Full Metal Alchemist, Attack on Titan, and One Punch Man. You want to see more and more of what the world of anime has to offer. You want to see the adventure that the character is having. You want to see the epic fight scenes. You want to see the new power that these characters can obtain. At this stage, you're still pretty normal. You haven't dived deeper into the disgusting part yet, but as soon as you run out of shonen anime to watch, you will go even deeper into the hole by discovering what is known as isekai. And for some of you, hentai as well, because going through some of these shonen shows, there's some baddies that you want to look at. But since I don't want this video to be 18 plus on my YouTube channel, we're just gonna skip the hentai part. When you discover the isekai part is when I think you step into a stage of being a weeb. At this point, you probably have some sort of anime figurine or an anime merch that you got from a convention or through the internet. You probably have figured out what anime sites to use for researching which anime to watch. You probably have some sort of gacha game installed, mainly Genshin. And most importantly, you probably know where to find the old hentai. And you'll probably attend a convention to talk about anime and make a friend. Or if you're like me, aka most people, and you're broke, you go on the internet to try to make friends to talk about anime with, but you end up failing because most weebs have social anxieties. Plus, you can't really trust a random person on the internet. Even if you would talk to them, you can't really trust them. Let's be real here. So you give up and you go back to consuming the old weeb culture. But at some point, you're just gonna get tired watching the same old tropes, the same old isekai. You want to look for something even further than just the overpowered main character who uses magical power to fight, who has a harem of women. You want something with more substance, with a lot more meaning behind it. You're not horny anymore. You're not hype anymore. You just want to watch something that makes you content with yourself in a way. Then at the final stage, you start to look at the boring shows that you have probably seen before but never really gave it a chance because the cover looks boring and the show looks boring. You start to look at the slice of life shows and you realize that the shows that relate to the real world is way more interesting than some random power fantasy show with girls that have titties that are the size of Mount Everest. At this point, after consuming so much anime and staying in your room so much, you start to develop a little social anxiety. You begin to like the shows that have characters that you can relate to in some aspect, whether it's a similar experience that you had, or you can see part of yourself in some of these characters. The struggle, the pain, the embarrassment, whatever reason it is, you enjoy the relaxing show way more. But at some point, you will run out of slice of life anime to watch pretty quickly because let's be honest, most of it is pretty freaking boring and uninteresting. Only some of them are great, the rest are just recycled shows. Most of the romantic comedy animes are recycled with a few plot twists, and most of these rom-com shows clock up like 50% of the slice of life genre. And at some point in time during your weeb journey, now I don't know when it is, but at some point during your weeb journey, you will start to read what is known as manga. But for most of you, that's not gonna happen because reading is for homosexuals. But as soon as you either run out of shows to watch or you get bored waiting for the next weekly episode of the current show that you're watching to drop, you're most likely gonna start reading manga. And when you do, you get the same feelings when you first discover anime or very close to that. There are a lot of great new titles to read, of course, a whole new experience because you're scrolling through the screen. You can catch up on the shows that you enjoyed, but once you sit through hundreds if not thousands of hours of watching anime and reading manga, you will run out of series to enjoy it, and that's it. You'll watch pretty much everything and you're just left waiting for every single week for a new episode or a chapter to drop. And at some point you just gotta wonder, what the fuck is the point in this shit? This is literally a never-ending process. It's an empty void for you to keep sinking into. There's nothing that would come out of this. Sure, you can take away a few lessons that reflect your daily life, but that's about it. Unless you're one of those rare people that could legit make a good living talking about these subjects. And I'm not hating on anybody or these guys, I'm actually a fan of trash taste, but it takes a lot of luck to be in the position where you can talk about animated titties and somehow create a good living for yourself. But otherwise, consuming too much of this medium will leave you with a shitty feeling and emptiness happiness in your life will probably be affected in some sort of way. Because every time you watch an anime, read a manga, spend an insane amount of money on a gacha game, or buy a figurine, you are carving parts of yourself to achieve that certain thing. Once you watch enough anime, it will change you in a certain way. Now, you might not realize it and you think, oh, that's not gonna happen to me. It will. It shapes literally everybody. Whether it's turning you into a super socially anxious person, a super degenerate, or a lolly-loving pedophile like me. The more you consume of this medium, the more you become like the guy in this video. And I'm not the greatest person ever. I'm not the best looking. In fact, I have a lot of problems myself, both internally and externally. But come on, you can't tell me this ain't a problem. And once you watch enough anime and consume the weeb culture for a long period of time, you can't just switch up and decide to be whoever you want to be. It doesn't work like that. You can't go from building that one thing for a long period of time and then turn around and decide to do another thing. Just like how if a person has been smoking, drinking, and being lazy throughout all their life, it's really difficult to break out these habits because you have been doing and consuming these things for so long. You can't just go from jerking off to hentai and consuming the culture until you're like around 27 and then decide to flip it and just change. Yes, some people have done it, but it's really difficult to break out of it. And even you decide to change and go a different route, once you go on that different route, you're not gonna be able to have enough time to catch up and make new connections and friends on that route. Once you hit around the age of like 28, it's really difficult to change. At this point, you're too old already. You don't have enough time to make those connections and build up those connections. In order to make good friends and connections with people that you can work with, you need to spend a lot of time with them so you can build up that trust. And if you're a retired weeb that stays in your room all day, it's really not going to be possible because you just don't have the time to catch up and build those connections. And you know, I think anime is fine. In fact, it's needed to spread creativity and inspire some people to do something with their life. And at the end of the day, it's all about a choice whether you decide to watch a lot of this content or not. Ain't nobody forcing you to sit there and enjoy incest lolly. It's your choice. But we really don't think about our choices when we're young until later on. When we look back at ourselves and be like, what the fuck was I watching? I mean, when you're in your late 20s or older, you have probably established your career. You're a proper functioning adult by then, hopefully. You can kind of critically think about things. And you look back in your younger years of watching anime, would you be proud that you watched some weird incest anime? Just be real. The answer is fuck no. Unless you're one of these people who can somehow make a masterpiece out of watching one of these shows, sure, it's cool. But for 99.99% of people out there, they ain't gonna be able to do that and monetize off of it also. And that includes me, by the way. I upload anime YouTube videos. And I know you could say as long as the person's happy, let them watch or do whatever they want. But I mean, come on, if you were a proper functioning normal human being when you're older, would you want to be like this? Would you want to be the person in your late 20s or 30s working at some shitty dead-end job, waiting to go home so you can watch some anime and spend your minimum wage paycheck on the next hot anime character in some gacha game? Or do you want to be the person who has a decent moral ground, has built a nice business for yourself, and maybe have a decent college degree? Sometimes you just need to do things to make yourself unhappy to achieve happiness later on. You don't see people saying, oh, he's an alcoholic, but as long as he's happy drinking himself to death and ruining his life, it's fine. And when you're young, it's okay to fuck up and embarrass yourself and do dumb shit. I have my fair share of embarrassing moments myself, and I'm going to continue to fuck up and have those embarrassing moments. And looking back for myself, I don't regret consuming a lot of this culture at all. Okay, I lied. There's a lot of things that I regret doing. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with watching anime or hentai for entertainment casually and maybe be a little degenerate and have a body pillow in your room with a hole in it. But in the end, as long as you're not becoming a super degenerate and you're cool and happy, who the fuck am I to tell you what to do with your time? But the next time you watch an anime, beat your meat to some random hentai, or spend money on a gacha game, just remember you're carving out parts of your soul to becoming someone like this guy. And yes, I know it's an exaggeration. He's probably a nice guy off camera, but you are picking some of the weird characteristics that a weeb has when you consume too much of this genre.